the surface, the construction of new tennis courts on the south end of the Cortlandt Park parade grounds seems like a great idea. But as Gary Axelbank found in this investigative report, below the surface, there might be a problem.
While proposals to build 6 new tennis courts in Cortlandt Park have been considered since 1984, the project has often been pushed down the priority list in Bronx Community Board 8. However, local tennis players insist that the need is there and the time to build is now.
These courts were built in 1962. Of course, at that time there weren't many tennis players, and they were adequate. Okay. They have not been refurbished because of the budget crunches. All they can do is, like every 3 or 5 years, they will put a new surface on, which, as you can see, with change in weather, temperatures, and all that crack. The Parks Department, because of its limit on funds, can give us only 1 net for each court a year. We sew them up continuously, but they're so cheaply made that they don't last. So we have to do with these.
After almost a decade of study and deliberation, using money that was reserved for the courts through Councilwoman June Island's discretionary funds, the Community Board finally settled on this location in the southern end of the parade grounds as the best spot for the new courts.
It's less disconcerting over there than it is right here. I mean, we're used to playing with the IRT subway and the buses going by and all sorts of other things, but I think it would be much nicer over there, and I think it would be safer for kids to be in that area.
It would seem like this is the best place for tennis courts. There's mass transit nearby, there are bathroom facilities. It's a beautiful setting and lovely to play tennis in this area. But really, is this spot the best place to build?
We have 1,200 acres here. And out of the whole park, this is probably one of the richest areas in historical aspects and sites, probably of all New York City. There's a pre-colonial burial ground that was started in the late 1600s. Farther east of that is a Negro slave burial ground. Any other site in New York State and New York City would love to have something from Indians to the Dutch to the Revolution to the burial ground. It's all right here. And again, out of 1,200 acres, I think they could leave these 5 acres or thereabout free for history. What you're looking at now is just a remnant of one of the headstones that was on the site. There was just stumps left. There's one here, there's one here, there is another one right over here. They run through as we would normally bury people in line. And throughout this whole site, it is just full of stones, which are the headstones of the burial ground. And we're just a few dozen yards away from the proposed tennis courts.
He got some remote historian to come up with that there are Indian graves under there. Well, maybe there are, and maybe there aren't. I think, you know, people have been living in this area for millenniums. We must be standing on a grave right here, possibly.
We're standing on the old Boston Post Road that was created in 1668. To bring it into perspective, you try to think of George Washington during the American Revolution. George Washington rode down this road, the old Boston Post Road that was, again, built in 1668, on November 21st, 1783, on Evacuation Day, as he went back in triumphantly into New York City.
He had another discovery that George Washington encamped there for a night. Well, I have a value for historical sites, I think, like any reasonable person. However, this particular area, the parade grounds, is totally used for recreational facilities.
The answer to this dispute might come when the Parks Department conducts its second archaeological study. But according to Ostrander, even this won't make it a viable plan.
They told them only go 18 inches, and that's all they dug. Well, the chances of finding anything in that depth is probably very good. They're not going to find much. And the fortunate thing is they still found stuff even at 18 inches. They're going to redo another one, which I think is going to be a waste of taxpayers' money to spend thousands of dollars, because, again, it's the site. It's not necessarily what's under the ground that makes it. It's the context of the site, as if you wouldn't put tennis courts on the lawn of Wave Hill.
And there's something else that's puzzling about this tennis court plan. Why would the Parks Department launch a $6.4 million program designed to preserve New York forests and educate about the dangers of woodland disturbances in an ecological center that is 25 yards from the proposed site of the tennis courts? Commissioner of New York City Parks Betsy Gottbaum thinks that there is room for both the Ecology Center and the tennis courts.
I don't see that there's any contradiction here. I think that preserving what we have at the same time allowing for more recreation is a good way to be.
The preservation issue and historical importance of this site is not all that's involved in determining the viability of the tennis court proposal. Can the city afford these courts and the $750,000 price tag? We'll explore that notion as well as offer an alternative to the proposed site in our next report.